Pete's here tonight, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I saw it.
And he's a great Carmen Fanzone, who's married to this wonderful Sue Rainey. Carmen is here, and they both played on the Cubs together.
Carmen, yes.
Yeah, Carmen's here somewhere. I
Yes.
don't know, but Carmen is here, and Pete, and they you know, they're there back there.
I gotta go through the audience and do some I know you wrote a book, Backstage at the Hollywood Squares. Originally, it was going to be just about Paul Lynde.
Yeah.
And the publisher thought there was not enough interest. I bet you have some wild stories about Paul Lynde. I know I do. Do you have any stories you can tell?
Not really. But you know who co-wrote she did all the work on the book, Adrienne Armstrong.
Yeah.
She's here, my darling Adrienne.
Yeah.
Her husband Bill
Bill.
produced Squares, and he wrote those great jokes, and we lost him a long time ago.
Yes, he had wonderful lobster
Oh
dinners for
God,
us.
we had so much fun with him.
Yes, and Paul, a lot of those jokes were written for him, but a lot of them come off the top of his head, though?
Yes, well, it wasn't that it came off the top of his head, it's the way he delivered them.
Yeah, sure.
See, I never knew any of the jokes, and they never knew any of the straight lines. I would look at a question, and I'd go, this has got to be a straight line, you know. How many men on a hockey team? I said, it's got to be a straight line. I says, hey, Paul, how many men on a hockey team? He said, about half.
Yeah, he was a wonderful guy.
He was a wonderful guy. He
He
drank, and he's not a
get off a little
guy,
bit.
no.
Yes, he's very sweet.
The last few years of his life, he was sober, and the last time I saw him was at the airport. He was going to, he used to do some, he looked great, and he was just a big, huge talent. Yeah.
Oh, he was. He was tremendously funny. Now, you were almost a regular guest host for the Tonight Show.
Yes.
Is that a fact?
When they brought the Tonight Show out here, my manager was Tom Shields, who was Johnny Carson's manager.
Oh.
Yeah, Shields and Bruno, and he got him the Tonight Show, and once he got the Tonight Show and he got him all this money, he met Sonny Werblin and he left Tom, and Tom sued, and got a lot of money, so he hated Tom Shields. Well, Tom was my manager, and they came to me at NBC. I don't know if Merrill knows this, and they said he wants a night off. Would you take over? Not Monday. Would you take Friday nights? I said, have you talked to Mr. Carson about this? He said, no, we don't have to talk to Mr. Carson. I said, I would advise you to talk to Mr. Carson because he hated that Tom was handling me. And so it came out in Variety that I was going to take over the Tonight Show on Friday nights. And 2 guys were fired. That was a terrible thing. And I never did the Tonight Show with Johnny. And yet we would sit and Harry Blake was our makeup guy. Hi, Johnny. Hi, Pete. Never. I always was guest host. And he never let me guest host. Yeah. He could have been very vindictive, old John, but he was terrific at what he did.
Yeah. Well, he did it. And they're rerunning some of his shows now.
I know.
That's
wonderful.
What else was I wanted to ask you about what were some of your favorite songs from the 40s? Do you have one or two really favorites that you loved?
Well,
either loved singing or loved hearing.
Oh, I love anything by Rodgers and Hart were my favorite. It's amazing about Richard Rodgers. The music that he wrote for Larry Hart's lyrics is completely different than the music he wrote with Mr. Hammerstein. It's like 2 different composers, but I loved Rodgers and Hart, and I love Yip Harburg's lyrics, and Mercer's lyrics, and I mean, I can go on and on about that era. I'm quite knowledgeable about it. That's why I'm on PBS with Nick Clooney, who also is very knowledgeable, and I feel so badly. I have 3 of my grandchildren. I have 4 children, 12 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren.
Wow.
And a couple of my grandchildren are married. And I hate their music. I just hate it.
Where did it cut off for you when you didn't like it?
It cut off a little before rock and roll.
Really?
Know? Yeah. I don't like country music, but I
You don't like country music?
I don't mind.
Oh, you don't mind, because you're from West Virginia.
I am. I'm a West Virginia boy.
And you were inducted into the West Virginia Hall of Fame.
I was.
I know, yes.
Yes, I was. But Nick Clooney was my sponsor. Nick lives down in. I'm a West Virginia boy. He's a Kentucky boy. George Clooney is as big, but nobody's as cute as his dad. Nick Clooney is the cutest guy in the world.
Well, I can't see how you could avoid country music growing up in West Virginia.
Yeah, but even then, I would listen to the big band things out of, all the remotes, Woody Herman and, of course, Glenn Miller and Tommy Dorsey and Jimmy Dorsey, all that stuff. For some reason, that's the music I chose, and that's the music I love.
Well, Frank DeVol, who you must have known, who
I know, you inducted him into the Hall of Fame.
Yes, he was a great,
He was very, and you saw Manhattan Tower. Incidentally, Manhattan Tower, that was live, 90 minutes live. And that was Gordon Jenkins Orchestra, 103 pieces.
Oh.
And they were in Burbank, and we did that live, an hour and a half. I think I had 14 songs and all that dialogue. And Helen O'Connell, I grew up with. She was my sister's best friend. And so it was very incestuous working with Helen. Yeah.
And she ended up marrying Frank DeVol, I
She
think.
did.
Yes.
And they had a wonderful marriage, actually.
Yes.
Well, God, he was with you. And
Yes, I did not know who he was till I did the show, and then I saw his name everywhere.
Yeah.
Very talented guy. You played Las Vegas. Do you like?
I opened the Desert Inn in 1950 with Tommy Noonan. If you look at the first, they had opened with the ventriloquist, Charlie McCarthy. Edgar Bergen. And they did a 2-week with gamblers, and then they opened to the public, and the first headliners were Tommy Noonan and Pete Marshall.
And what year was that?
1950.
What was Vegas like then?
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had one cab driver on the strip, his name was Louis. Because everybody drove in, but if you wanted to drink and hang around, you'd hire Louis for the night.
Wow.
And they had the Flamingo, the Desert Inn, the Last Frontier, the El Rancho, and where the Sahara was, that was the Bingo, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wonderful. You're working for the mob. I've been working for the mob most of my life. And they were the most wonderful guys to work with. And when you think about what they did, there was only liquor and gambling. That's all. There was no prostitution, there was no drugs, there was none of that. And to work for these guys, if you were a good kid, which I was, and I didn't mess around with the girls or I didn't drink, they treated you so wonderfully. And so I worked Vegas all my life. That's how I raised my kids. Vegas, not television, not nightclubs, it was Vegas.
I would love to go back to that era, because Vegas has changed so much. Now you have to stay in one hotel. It's a trip to go to another hotel.
You can't walk down the strip anymore.
Yeah, and you could get a room for almost nothing and a buffet for 99 cents.
Yeah.
You have a great love for animals.
I do.
Yes. How many dogs